Alpha King woke in Omega's arms after collapse, then asked why her scent matched his origin. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main characters. It was a dark, quiet night, with only the rustling of leaves and the occasional howl of distant wolves breaking the stillness. In the depths of the forest, where the moonlight barely touched the ground, Emily Ashford stood over the fallen figure of the Alpha King, Liam Thornridge. She had found him, lying unconscious, his body battered and broken, his breath shallow, his pulse faint. She didn't know how or why, but the moment her eyes had met his lifeless form, something inside her had pushed her to act. She had no strength to move mountains, no magic to heal him instantly, but she had something else, the ability to soothe and to heal with her touch. Kneeling beside him, Emily placed her hands over his chest, whispering a soft prayer to the moon. As her fingers brushed against his skin, she could feel the warmth slowly returning to his body, his breathing stabilizing. Emily didn't know what it was about him that called to her, but she felt an undeniable connection, as if their fates were intertwined by something ancient, something beyond their understanding. Her heart raced as she focused on healing him, the world around her fading into the background. After what seemed like an eternity, Liam's body finally stirred. His hand moved, gripping the grass beneath him as his eyes fluttered open. The first thing he saw was Emily, her worried expression etched with relief and confusion. He blinked, as if trying to make sense of what was happening. He was alive, yes, but why? How? And then, a question that would change everything. Why does your scent match mine? His voice was rough, filled with the rawness of someone who had just escaped the grip of death. Emily froze, her breath caught in her throat. Scent. She had never noticed anything unusual about her own. She had always been different. Yes, but this? This was beyond her comprehension. Was this some kind of fate? Or was it something more? Before she could respond, Liam's intense gaze locked onto hers, as if searching for an answer she couldn't give. He struggled to sit up, his body still weak, but the pull between them was undeniable. Emily's heart raced in a way she had never felt before. There was something in his eyes, something ancient, something that made her feel like she was standing at the edge of a great unknown. Who are you? Liam asked, his voice softer now, a strange tenderness creeping into his words. I'm just Emily, she whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know what's happening, but I felt like I had to help you. Liam's gaze softened, and for a moment, Emily saw a flicker of something. A recognition, maybe? A connection. You saved me, he murmured. But why do you smell like me? Why is your scent? He trailed off, struggling to make sense of it. The tension between them grew, thick with unspoken words and emotions neither of them could fully understand. But one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. Of what? Neither of them knew, but they both felt it, deep in their souls, in their very beings. The bond between them had just begun to form, and nothing would ever be the same again. Emily could hardly believe her ears. The Alpha King's voice echoed in her mind, his question lingering in the air. His eyes, fierce and full of untold secrets, were fixed on her, waiting for an answer that neither of them had yet discovered. She swallowed hard, trying to collect herself. I don't know, she whispered, her voice trembling. I don't think it's possible. I'm just an Omega. Liam, still trying to sit up, watched her with growing intensity, his hand pushing against the ground as if the weight of the world was pressing down on him. His breathing steadied, but his mind raced. He had never experienced anything like this. For someone as powerful as him, to be saved by someone so seemingly fragile, someone who smelled like him, was beyond his understanding. His thoughts were clouded, but the connection was undeniable. He could feel it deep within his chest, a tug that pulled him toward her. I've never met anyone like you, Liam murmured, the words barely escaping his lips. His voice was rough, almost as if speaking it was a challenge. Emily stepped back slightly, her heart racing. What do you mean? She asked, confused but fascinated. I've never felt anything like this before. Your scent, it's familiar. He paused, searching for the right words, his gaze never leaving hers. It matches mine. Emily's mind raced. She had always known she was different, that her life as an Omega set her apart from the rest of the pack. But this was something she had never anticipated. She had heard of the bond between mates, the way Alpha and Omega could feel drawn to each other. But it was different. It was as if something inside her recognized him before she even knew who he was. But how? She was just an ordinary girl. Her mind started to spiral, thoughts colliding with each other. But I'm nothing special, she said, almost pleading with herself more than Liam. I'm not like the others. Liam shook his head, his silver eyes softening. You are special, he said, his voice quieter now, tinged with an emotion she couldn't place. There's something about you, something that calls to me. It's in the way you healed me, in the way you smell. Emily couldn't help but feel a flutter in her chest at his words. It was ridiculous, how a few simple phrases could make her heart race. But there was something about Liam, something that made her feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to fall into something unknown. His presence was overwhelming, and yet, there was a calmness in his eyes that made her feel safe. For the first time in her life, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this world. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions and emotions. Emily could feel the weight of his gaze on her, but instead of making her feel nervous, it grounded her. It was like she could finally breathe in a way she never had before. And Liam? Liam felt it too. He couldn't explain it, couldn't understand it, but in that moment, he knew. This was no coincidence. She was his mate. He just hadn't realized it yet. Emily, Liam said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. I don't know what this means, but I know one thing for sure. I'm not going anywhere. Emily's breath caught in her throat. He didn't know how much those words meant to her. She had spent her whole life feeling like an outcast, like something wasn't quite right about her. But in that moment, standing in front of this powerful Alpha King, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel weak. She felt seen. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if that was a blessing or a curse. The air around them seemed to thrum with energy, something unspoken passing between them. Neither of them could quite grasp what had just happened, but deep down, they both knew. Their fates had already been written, and nothing could change that. The tension between Emily and Liam hung thick in the air, neither of them fully understanding what had just transpired. Liam's mind raced with confusion, yet a sense of clarity was beginning to settle in the pit of his stomach. He had never felt so drawn to someone, so connected to another person in such an inexplicable way. It was as if every part of him was pulling toward her, and the bond was undeniable. But Emily? Emily was still trying to wrap her head around everything. She had spent her life as an outcast, never truly fitting in with the pack, and now here she was, standing before the Alpha King, with the strange, growing sensation that their destinies were linked in a way she couldn't explain. The silence between them was interrupted by Liam, his voice steady, yet filled with an underlying uncertainty. Do you feel it too? He asked, his silver eyes searching hers. Emily hesitated, feeling the weight of his gaze on her. She had never believed in fate, at least not in the way the stories told it. But this felt like something from those very stories. Something she had never imagined. I think I do, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But I don't understand it. I don't understand how this could happen. Liam nodded slowly, his hand reaching out to touch her arm gently. The moment his fingers made contact with her skin, a jolt of warmth spread through Emily, as if a hidden spark had been ignited. Her breath caught in her throat as her heart began to race. It doesn't matter if we understand it, Liam said softly, his words carrying a sense of finality. What matters is that we're here. And I don't think I can walk away from this. Emily's chest tightened as she looked up at him, her heart pounding. She had never felt this way before, so torn between fear and something else, something deeper. But what about the consequences? She asked, her voice trembling. The pack, the rules, they won't accept us. Liam's expression darkened, but there was a flicker of determination in his eyes. The pack may not accept us, but they don't control us. I don't need their approval, he said firmly. You and I, we're something different. Something that can't be denied. The conviction in his voice sent a shiver down Emily's spine. She wanted to believe him. wanted to believe in whatever this connection was between them, but the fear of the unknown still held her back. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she confessed, her voice breaking as she took a step back. Liam's eyes softened, and he took a slow step toward her, his presence enveloping her like a warm blanket. "I don't know if I'm ready either," he admitted, "but I'm willing to take the first step with you. Together." Emily swallowed hard, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. But there was something in his words, something in the way he looked at her, that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something she couldn't ignore. Something that had been written long before their paths had ever crossed. "Okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'll take that step with you." A sense of peace settled over her as she looked into Liam's eyes. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was alone. For the first time, she felt like she belonged. And with that, the bond between them deepened, their futures now intertwined in ways neither of them could yet comprehend. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Together, they would face whatever came next. The days that followed were filled with an uncertain tension, yet a quiet understanding blossomed between Emily and Liam. As the Alpha King and the Omega, their bond had deepened with every passing moment, though neither of them fully grasped the implications of what it meant. The pack, still unaware of the connection forming between their king and this unknown Omega, continued with their daily routines, oblivious to the change that was stirring within the very heart of their territory. Emily spent her days near the edge of the forest, where the moonlight filtered through the trees in soft beams, illuminating the path she now walked. She had never felt this kind of peace before. Despite the fear that lingered in the back of her mind, there was something comforting about being close to Liam, even if the world outside of them seemed to move at a frantic pace. Liam, on the other hand, found it difficult to focus on his duties as Alpha. His mind wandered back to Emily constantly, and every time their paths crossed, his heart seemed to beat a little faster, as if it were searching for a rhythm that it had always known but never fully understood. The connection between them was undeniable, yet Liam knew there were still many questions left unanswered. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the forest, Emily found herself standing at the edge of the clearing, staring up at the sky. The stars were beginning to appear, twinkling softly in the growing darkness. Her thoughts were a tangled mess, each one pulling her in a different direction. She had never expected her life to turn out like this. She had always thought she would live and die quietly, unnoticed by the world. But now, with Liam by her side, everything felt different. She felt like she was on the edge of something incredible, yet terrifying. "Are you okay?" Liam's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to find him standing just a few feet behind her. His gaze was soft, but there was a concern in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. "I don't know," Emily admitted, her voice quiet. "I'm scared. I've never felt anything like this before. It's like everything in my life has led up to this moment, and yet I don't know what to do with it." Liam took a step closer, his presence warm and steady. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "We don't have to have all the answers right now," he said, his voice soothing. "We'll figure it out together, one step at a time." Emily looked up at him, her breath catching in her throat as she saw the sincerity in his eyes. "But what if it's too much?" she whispered, the vulnerability in her voice unmistakable. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Liam squeezed her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "You're stronger than you think," he said softly. "I've seen it in you, Emily. You've got a strength inside you that's far beyond what anyone could understand. You saved me when no one else could. Don't doubt that. Don't doubt yourself." His words, simple as they were, settled deep within her, bringing a sense of calm that she hadn't realized she needed. She had spent her life questioning her worth, wondering if she would ever be enough. But in that moment, standing beside Liam, she realized something. Maybe, just maybe, she was enough. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Liam smiled softly, the expression lighting up his face. "You don't need to thank me," he said gently. "I'm here for you always, and I'll never let you go." Emily felt her heart flutter at his words, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to truly believe in the possibility of something more. The bond between them was still new, still fragile, but it was real, and for that, she was grateful. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter as Emily and Liam stood together, their hands intertwined, the quiet promise of a future yet to be written unfolding before them. The following days were filled with both a sense of calm and an unspoken tension that neither Emily nor Liam could completely shake. They spent time together, learning more about each other as their bond grew stronger. Liam found himself lost in thoughts of Emily at all hours of the day. Her kindness, her strength, everything about her was pulling him in deeper. It was a pull he didn't understand, but one he couldn't resist. Emily, too, felt herself changing, but there was a lingering fear she couldn't shake. Could she truly belong in his world? A world of power, of rules, of a pack that might never accept her? Each time she looked into Liam's eyes, she saw not just the Alpha King, but someone who truly saw her, someone who made her feel like she mattered. But doubts remained. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the land, Emily and Liam found themselves standing in a quiet clearing in the forest. The air was still, the only sound being the soft rustling of the trees as the wind whispered through the branches. Emily felt her heart beat a little faster, the weight of the moment settling over her. This was it, the moment when everything could change. "Liam," she began, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "What if the pack doesn't accept me? What if they don't accept us?" Liam turned toward her, his expression serious yet soft, and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "The pack will follow my lead," he said, his voice calm and unwavering. "I won't let them tear us apart." Emily's gaze dropped to the ground, a mixture of emotions swirling inside her. "But they could. I'm not like them, Liam. I don't have the strength, the power they have. I'm just an Omega." "You're more than that," Liam said, his tone firm yet gentle. He cupped her face in his hands, lifting her chin so that she was forced to meet his gaze. "You have a strength that they can't see, and I'll make sure they do." His words, filled with conviction, sent a rush of warmth through Emily, and for a moment, all of her doubts seemed to fade into the background. Liam stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, yet comforting. "Emily, I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing. I'm not letting you go. Not now, not ever." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected to hear such words, words that made her feel like she was finally seen for who she truly was, not just as an Omega, but as someone who mattered. She reached up, placing her hand over his, her fingers lightly brushing his skin. "And I'm not going anywhere either," she said softly, the fear still there, but also a growing sense of hope. For the first time, she believed in something greater than herself. She believed in them. As they stood there together, the world seemed to fall away. The uncertainty, the fear of the future, all of it was pushed aside in that moment. All that mattered was the bond they shared, the bond that had already begun to change their lives forever. Liam leaned in, his lips brushing against her forehead in a soft, lingering kiss. "We'll face it together," he whispered, his voice filled with promise. And in that moment, Emily knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. As the days passed, Liam and Emily continued to navigate the uncharted waters of their bond. Though they had both admitted their feelings, the reality of their situation began to set in. The pack was still unaware of their growing connection, and the whispers of Emily's presence near Liam were starting to stir unrest among the higher ranks. It wasn't long before those whispers began to reach the Alpha King's ears, and he knew he could not keep this secret any longer. One evening, as the moon rose high in the sky, casting its silver glow over the kingdom, Liam stood at the edge of the balcony, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. The weight of the decision ahead pressed heavily on him. He could feel the storm approaching, and he knew that he had to prepare for what would come next. Behind him, Emily entered the room, her soft footsteps barely audible on the stone floor. She had grown more accustomed to being near him, though the uncertainty of their future still lingered in her heart. "Liam?" she asked quietly, her voice gentle as she approached him. He turned to face her, his silver eyes filled with a mixture of determination and apprehension. "We can't keep hiding, Emily," he said, his tone serious. "The pack will find out sooner or later. And when they do, we need to be ready." Emily felt a knot form in her stomach at the thought of revealing their bond to the pack. She had never been part of the inner circle, never held any significant place in the pack's hierarchy. The idea of being thrust into the spotlight, especially in such an intimate way, made her nervous. "What if they don't accept us?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What if they turn against us?" Liam reached for her hand, his grip firm but reassuring. "We will face it together," he said, his words filled with the strength of his conviction. "The pack may question us, but they will follow me. And if they won't, then we will lead them." Emily swallowed, the weight of his words sinking in. He was right. There was no turning back now. "I trust you," she said softly, her gaze meeting his. "I trust us." Liam smiled, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and tenderness. "Then we'll make it through this. Together." The following morning, Liam called for a meeting with the higher-ranking members of the pack. Emily stood beside him, her nerves on edge as she tried to steady her breath. The pack leaders gathered in the grand hall, their eyes wary as they took their seats. The tension in the room was palpable as the Alpha King stepped forward. "There is something I must tell you all," Liam began, his voice strong and commanding. "This is Emily Ashford. She is not just an Omega. She is my mate." A collective gasp echoed through the room, and Emily could feel the weight of the pack's gaze upon her. It was as if the room had frozen, every eye studying her, judging her. Liam's gaze never wavered from the leaders as he continued, his words unwavering. "I will not stand for anyone questioning her place by my side. We will face whatever challenges come, but she is not to be treated as lesser." Emily felt the fear that had been building inside her slowly dissipate as Liam's words rang out in the hall. His confidence, his unwavering support for her, gave her a sense of strength she had never known. As the room remained silent, one of the elder wolves finally spoke up, his voice rough but respectful. "If the Alpha claims her, then we stand by his decision." The tension in the room began to ease as murmurs of agreement spread. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. Emily felt the weight of the pack's acceptance, though she knew there would be challenges ahead. But with Liam by her side, she was ready to face them. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur, the pack leaders discussing the implications of the Alpha's declaration. Emily remained at Liam's side, her hand in his, feeling the strength of their bond growing stronger with each passing moment. As the meeting came to a close, Liam turned to Emily, his smile soft but full of determination. "We did it," he said quietly. "Now we move forward." Emily nodded, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and excitement. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. Together, they would face whatever came their way. And for the first time in her life, Emily felt like she truly belonged. The days after the meeting with the pack felt like both a victory and a challenge. Emily had never imagined that her life would take such a dramatic turn, but now, standing beside Liam, she felt the weight of their bond in ways she had never experienced before. The pack had accepted their union, but the road ahead would not be without its hurdles. Whispers still circulated among the pack members, some questioning the Alpha King's choice, others simply unsure of how to accept the Omega at his side. But Liam's presence was unwavering. He had made it clear that Emily was his mate, and nothing would tear them apart. As the days turned into weeks, Emily grew stronger in her role by Liam's side. She found herself learning more about the intricacies of pack life, the traditions, the responsibilities, and the constant challenge of maintaining order. Yet, amidst all of this, she felt a deep sense of purpose she had never known. One evening, as the sky turned dark and the stars began to shimmer above, Liam invited her to walk with him through the forest. It had become one of their favorite rituals, quiet moments spent away from the eyes of the pack, just the two of them in the quiet embrace of the woods. "How are you holding up?" Liam asked softly as they walked side by side, his voice low and reassuring. Emily glanced at him, her heart swelling with affection. He had always been protective, but now, more than ever, she could see the depth of his care for her. "I'm okay," she replied, though she could sense the lingering uncertainty in her voice. "It's just, sometimes I feel like I don't belong, Liam. I wasn't born into this world, and I still don't understand it completely. I'm not like the other Omegas." Liam stopped walking and turned to face her, his silver eyes locking with hers. "You don't have to be like anyone else, Emily," he said, his voice filled with tenderness. "You're exactly who you need to be. I don't want you to change. I never have." Emily felt her chest tighten at his words. His love, His acceptance was everything she had ever longed for. But deep down, there was still a part of her that doubted whether she truly deserved it. But what if they never accept me? She whispered, the question that had haunted her since the beginning. What if I'm just an outsider, always looking in? Liam stepped closer to her, his hand gently cupping her cheek. I will never let anyone make you feel like you don't belong, he promised, his voice unwavering. You are my Luna, my mate, and no one will ever take that away from you. We will face this together, no matter what. Emily felt the strength in his words, the warmth in his touch, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe it. Maybe the road ahead would be difficult. Maybe there would be moments of doubt and fear, but she knew one thing for sure. They would face it together. As they continued their walk through the forest, the stars overhead shining brightly, Emily felt a quiet sense of peace settle within her. She didn't know what the future held, but with Liam by her side, she knew she would find the strength to face whatever came their way. The bond between them had already begun to shape their lives in ways they couldn't fully understand, but Emily knew that it was a bond that could never be broken. No matter what the pack thought, no matter the challenges they would face, she and Liam were ready to walk this path together, and nothing could change that. The days turned into weeks, and the tension between Emily and the pack began to ease, but there was still a sense of anticipation in the air. The pack had started to see Emily not just as an Omega, but as the Luna of the Alpha King, though not everyone was ready to accept this new reality. Some of the older wolves, especially those in positions of power, still whispered behind closed doors, unsure of what the future would hold. But with each passing day, Emily grew more confident in her role. She had begun to learn the ways of the pack, not just as a healer, but as someone who would one day rule beside Liam. The castle, once a place of solitude and quiet, now felt like home. One evening, after a particularly long day of training with the pack's warriors, Emily found herself standing outside on the balcony, gazing out over the darkened forest. The wind was cool, and the stars above were clearer than she had ever seen them before. It was a peaceful moment, one that allowed her to reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. As she stood there, lost in thought, she felt Liam's presence before she even heard his footsteps. She didn't turn to face him, but she smiled softly, knowing it was him. I thought I'd find you here, Liam said, his voice low and comforting. Emily turned to look at him, her heart fluttering slightly as their eyes met. I needed some time to think, she replied quietly. Liam stepped closer, his gaze softening as he studied her. I know this has been a lot to adjust to, he said, reaching out to gently take her hand in his. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you, Emily. You've done more for this pack than anyone could have imagined. Emily's heart swelled with emotion at his words. She had always doubted herself, never truly believing she could be more than just a healer. But with Liam's unwavering support, she felt stronger than she ever had before. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with gratitude. But it's not just me. You've done so much for this pack, too. You're the one who led them, who brought them back together. Liam's expression softened, and for a moment, he seemed distant, lost in thought. It wasn't always easy, he admitted. But with you by my side, I know we can face anything. You've already proven that. Emily felt a warmth spread through her at his words. For the first time, she truly believed that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. We'll do it together, she said softly, her grip tightening around his hand. Liam smiled, and the look in his eyes was filled with both affection and determination. We will, he agreed, his voice firm. We'll face whatever comes next, side by side. The night seemed to fall silent around them, the only sound the soft rustle of the trees in the breeze. For a moment, it felt as though time had stopped, and in that stillness, Emily felt a sense of peace that she had never known before. She didn't know what the future held, but with Liam beside her, she knew she was ready to face it. Together, they had already begun to carve their place in the world, and nothing, not even the pack's doubts, could tear them apart. As the night grew darker, Emily leaned her head against Liam's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his body and the steady beat of his heart. She closed her eyes, content in the knowledge that no matter what the world threw at them, they would face it together. And that, she realized, was all that truly mattered. The following weeks were filled with a quiet sense of anticipation as Emily and Liam continued to grow into their roles. The pack, though still hesitant, had begun to slowly adjust to the idea of having Emily by Liam's side. Yet, not all wolves in the pack were ready to accept the new Luna. Some still doubted her strength, her ability to lead, and questioned the Alpha King's decision. The whispers never fully stopped, but Emily had learned to block them out, focusing instead on what she could control: her bond with Liam, her role as his mate, and her place within the pack. One day, while walking through the garden of the castle, Emily paused, taking in the sight of the blooming flowers and the peaceful atmosphere around her. It was a small comfort, but it reminded her of the life she once dreamed of, a life far simpler than the one she now led. As she stood lost in thought, Liam appeared at her side, his presence always soothing, always steady. "You seem distant," he remarked, his voice gentle yet filled with concern. Emily turned to face him, offering him a small smile. "I've just been thinking," she said softly, "about everything. How much has changed, how much I've changed." Liam studied her carefully, his eyes searching her face. "And what do you think about all this?" he asked. "About us, about the pack." Emily took a deep breath, her gaze drifting back to the garden. "It's more than I ever expected," she admitted. "I never thought I'd be here, with you, let alone leading the pack one day. It feels overwhelming sometimes. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing." Liam reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You're doing more than right, Emily. You're showing them who you are. You're not just my mate, you're their Luna, and they're starting to see that." Emily's heart swelled at his words, but a flicker of doubt still lingered within her. "But are they really seeing me?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Or are they just seeing what they want to see, because I'm with you?" Liam's grip tightened around her hand, his gaze never leaving hers. "They'll see you in time. But even if they don't, I see you. I see everything in you, Emily. Your strength, your heart, your ability to lead. You're more than ready for this." His confidence in her, his unwavering belief, settled deep in her chest, pushing away the lingering doubts. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm scared, Liam. I don't want to fail. Not you, not the pack." Liam pulled her into a gentle embrace, his arms wrapping around her, offering her the safety and comfort she so desperately needed. "You'll never fail," he whispered into her hair. "We'll face everything together, as a team, and no matter what comes, you're never alone." Emily closed her eyes, allowing herself to rest in the warmth of his embrace, feeling the steadiness of his presence and the strength of their bond. She had never felt more at peace, and yet, she knew the challenges weren't over. The pack still had questions, still had doubts, but she wasn't the same woman she had been when she first arrived. She was no longer just the quiet Omega on the sidelines. She was Liam's mate. She was the Luna, and together, they would face whatever came next. With Liam by her side, Emily finally believed that they could overcome any obstacle, no matter how difficult it seemed. They had already overcome so much together, and that was just the beginning. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Emily felt ready to embrace it fully. No longer was she the Omega waiting for approval. She was the Luna, and this was her place.